I'm pleased to say that our engagement in the United States is beyond what you've seen from the meeting that was held yesterday. The engagements are deep. They have extended to the State Department. Today, they'll be extending to the IMF, to the World Bank. They extended to the MCC. Remember that we met the eligibility for Compact 2. We had Compact 1 before. And just about the time that took place, the new administration had an approach of putting a pause on most of the engagements that the U.S. has with the rest of the world. So we thought that it was important to catalog all these issues into one basket on this mission, to reach out. And that has been going very well. The delegation in America has been simultaneously engaging on all fronts with American institutions and other multilateral organizations located in the U.S. So Minister Gafuan led some members of the team and they met with the MCC after the president's engagement with Trump. That engagement was very rewarding and fruitful, and it gives us new hope. Because the impression out there is that everything has been canceled, including the compact that we achieved from the MCC. As a result of the engagement with the MCC team by the Minister of Finance, we've been now told that the MCC compact that we won, along with other countries, is not canceled. We've been informed that what has been done is that it is being reviewed, consistent with what the President's policy position was in terms of international engagement, in terms of support. So we have an assurance that it is not canceled. It has been reviewed, and the country will be eventually informed as to what the outcome of the review process is and what exactly the next steps will be. In fact, when I was being briefed by the Minister of Finance on this issue, he was very confident that we're on the right path. And he was able to make effectively the case as to how the country arrived at meeting compact. There are sacrifices that are made, there are time put in, deep work done to meet the threshold that will qualify you. And based on how he effectively articulated the country's interest in MCC, he's very hopeful that we're still on course. It may be delayed, but he's convinced that it is not denied. And after that review process, whatever the new structural arrangements will be, whether there will be adjustment in the institutional structure or whatever they are, the country will still somehow get the benefit that we are supposed to from the MCC. There was an opportunity also during the engagement at the State Department to make the case, even though the Americans now are focused on trade and economic diplomacy, but it was an opportunity to make the case for what USAID's engagement in Africa represents. But it was zoomed in on Liberia, what it means to have USAID operating here. And those engagements were also good. Yes, economic and trade diplomacy is a way out, but the Americans also note that they are the greatest country on earth. And some way, somehow, they will have to keep engaging other countries of the world and find a way to help those that are not strong enough. And so they're looking at the whole structure. What they are concerned about is the structure that was being used, which is USAID, which they have some issues with, and they are reviewing if there are other structural mechanisms that will be used to continue U.S. engagement. They will make that determination. But our delegation have been able to make the case that whatever USAID was doing, or whatever the American government was doing through USAID, was good for the African continent, is still good for the African continent. It's something that Liberia believes should not be strapped completely. And there are assurances that at the end of the day, when their review processes are finished, whether they will have new institutions to do so, or some of the existing institutions will do so, they're looking at all of those options. If we didn't have the chance to be there based on the invitation for President Trump, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do all of that. Of course, we got to be clear to say to you also that immigration was also a major point of discussion wide in the U.S., particularly after they got through with that general stuff that we all saw on the television screen and went into privately. There's no doubt that immigration is a problem. Our country has also contributed. There are a lot of people who would travel to the U.S. on tourist visa. They will overstay, they will abscond. It's happening to many countries, and Liberia is a part. So we held honest conversation about how to handle that. And you see, when people do so, they affect you, because those who are opportune to have visa, their conduct can come back to haunt people here who will want to go to the U.S., including many of you sitting here. I know people don't come out to say what it is, but if I were to ask how many of you here have gone to the embassy and how many times you've been denied visa, I'm sure I will see some hands, or that will say, I've tried 10 times, and on all 10 occasions, I was denied. Sometimes it's not necessarily about you. Yeah, there may be instances where something could be linked to you directly, but we're paying for the sins of others who chose not to behave well. When you come from a country and you got an opportunity to go somewhere and you do the wrong thing, it comes back, they will come back to haunt the rest of the folks in the country. One of the things that was started in 2013, the U.S.-Liberia partnership, died down in the last few years. When the dialogue took place in 2013, 6 months later or so, there was a huge American delegation that came here to foster and strengthen the partnership. But after the transition with a new administration, everything crumbled. The engagement in the U.S. ensured that we made a case for the reintroduction of the partnership, which the Americans are open to. The partnership dialogue will be revived, and the first assembly of the dialogue will take place in the U.S. And for us, it's good. It's a political dialogue. So once you have the time to keep dialoguing with America, you sit on the same table with them to bring up all of the issues, you can get the best out of the relationship. President Trump generally had a good impression about Liberia and our president. He was particularly impressed to note, I don't know whether that meant he didn't know already, but I'm told he was particularly impressed to note that Liberia is a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. And did say that then there's a need to have stronger and more regular engagement with our country based on our presence there. There will be several follow-up engagements beyond what you saw on the television screen. Some of them are ongoing now, as I said, engagement at the State Department, led by the Foreign Minister, where other issues are being discussed, and then Minister Gafuan and team going to the IMF, going to the MCC, all geared towards strengthening the relationship we have. Today, the President will also meet with different Liberian groups to talk about the country. So far, the engagement in the U.S. is good. The country is positively engaging. We've made a case, and we look forward to what the outcome of the case will be. And I want to state again that President Trump currently has a very positive impression about our country and the man who leads the country. The President will leave the U.S. today, this evening, and he will be back home tomorrow. We will organize you, members of the press, to be at the airport at the time of his arrival, so that you have the chance to also interact with him, asking your questions about the mission in the U.S. I know what matters to some people were things that, yeah, maybe they are good, but not to occupy our attention and space. Some people were vexed, as usual, even though they are Liberians. And they're looking for all the reasons to vent on how vexed they are. So much so that somebody says, President Trump telling President Bouaka that he speaks very good English was condescending. Do we debate about those things? It doesn't worth it. If somebody have their own definition about what is condescending, and they're looking for all the ways to be negative, and that's what they believe, let them live with it. If that's something that will make them happy, then we stand with them in helping to make them happy by the way they think. Because what is it in such a comment that somebody would think is condescending? I lived in the U.S. for a couple of years. And it is a challenge always when you are amongst Americans. And David Anderson can attest to that, to communicate. They always find a reason to say you have accent. And sometimes pretend that they don't understand you. Sometimes that can hinder your own advancement in that society. Because there are certain kinds of jobs that you can't get if the people believe they can understand you well. What if it was somebody else who spoke and President Trump said, I hardly understood what the person said? What would you say? I think that's when you're supposed to be concerned about somebody being condescending. But to say what he said, man, the simple thing for us see from here is that he understood well whatever the man said. And all the leaders who were sitting there and were trying to make some remarks, they were doing one thing. The book people called it pitching. Each of them were trying to pitch their country. Those who do public administration, there is a science or a course that is called persuasion. It teaches one of the many things that you will learn from it is how you can make the case for anything, which they call pitching. And because President Mbaka was clearly understood, he pitched the country well, the country was sold effectively. The American president said, they are better than some people sitting around the table here. If I was sitting on a table and somebody says to me, my data who just spoke English is so good, more than someone who's sitting down here, and I'm sitting there too, I would feel that the comment is condescending towards me. But because there are some of us who are so angry and looking for every reason to be negative about our country, the man who is being acknowledged that his English was good and therefore he was understood is a man who people say the president was being condescending towards. You all watch President Trump, all his interaction. You saw him with the South African president. You saw him with Zelensky. You saw him with many persons. The engagement yesterday was with a relaxed, calm, and happy President Trump, who largely showed respect to the leaders he was dealing with. I'm told behind the scene, the foreign minister was telling me, he saw our flag. He said, oh, this is how your flag looked. You took our flag, meaning Liberia took America's flag. You know what is happening there? The similarities in the both countries were being seen. That attracts the American president closer to our country. Our relationship with America is being consolidated by this single visit of President Mbaka. The missing links are being found. The outstanding issues will be resolved. We will, in a way we should, benefit from our relationship with America. There was one major thing the president said during his brief remarks, that the country needs a geological survey, and he asked the Americans to help. They have what it takes to do that. We don't have it. I'm informed by the delegation in the U.S. that the Americans are open to helping us with that geological survey. You know what that does? Right now you know you get iron ore. You know you got diamond. You know you got gold. You don't know what else you have. You don't. That geological survey will help you to discover the unknown. We could be sitting on billions here. Now we don't know because we don't have the capacity to do the survey that's required to determine what we have here. You see, President Mbaka was intentional and strategic. He knows that there is an administration that has an agenda that is focused on what they call America First. At the same time, being a man of wisdom, he was convinced that there were ways he could engage President Trump, that when it comes to Liberia, the America First agenda may remain, but we have room to look at Liberia in a positive way. We don't take what has happened for granted. We, as leaders chosen by the president to work with him, have jobs to do. Part of that is now that we do all the external engagements after this meeting to make sure that we have the fruits of this mission that will put our country back on a pedestal with America, that all of us will look back one day and say, truly, the United States of America is Liberia's most important traditional ally. And that relationship will always survive irrespective of who sits in the White House. The president himself is in good mood. When he arrives tomorrow, you will see it, you will feel it, and you will know that he'll be stepping down on Liberian soil like a soldier who has returned from battle victorious. Victorious not for himself, for the motherland, for the people of Liberia. And those of us who are getting vexed because that opportunity was availed to him, put aside the anger a little bit. Put aside the hate. See the good in what is happening from the perspective of the country. You got more to unpack, right? But you see, you talk based on what you are authorized to say. So everything I've said here are the ones that I am authorized to say. There are many things, some very good, that I can't say now because I am not authorized to say so. But eventually, as the days and weeks go on, we'll unpack them. But you see with your own eyes, moving forward, that the relationship is enhanced, is consolidated, and is back on the proper track. Thank you for your attention.